Cri, cru, verga, geba, calto, cri. It's Blackbeard's ghost time, people. We are doing this. I'm going to let Jared in right now. Hello, everybody. Hey, Jim. Glad to see you. There we go.
How's it going?
Good. How you doing, Jared?
I am I'm doing well.
All
I'm
right.
done with
Well,
work for the day, so that's always good.
okay. Awesome.
How are you?
I'm trying to get my stuff to show up in the picture. Well, we'll just go here. How's that?
Okay.
I'm doing good. It's been a busy week again. Prepping for military retirement is not fun. It's it's a lot of hard work actually.
I
So,
bet.
yeah, got that going on and a little bummed out. My San Francisco Giants have lost a couple games in a row. The pennant race is getting heated. So,
Well, sorry that you're bummed. I'm not a football fan.
oh, baseball.
See, I'm not even a
Okay,
baseball.
there you go.
Oh my
All
gosh.
right.
I'm already
Hey,
embarrassed up and we're not even 1 minute in.
yeah, we're already screwed up. Let's see who's joining us today. Jim, I said hi. MD Snotty, again, nice to have you back. I see Chris is in the chat. He's got his cat fed, his dinner made. He's all prepped for everything for October on his website. So,
Oh, awesome.
uh, yeah. Plus Ultra Diz Sydney. Why is he on a motorcycle? Well, we'll talk about that. Why Blackbeard's on a motorcycle tonight. Yeah, that's one of the funniest scenes in this movie. Of course, we're talking about Blackbeard's ghost today. But before we get started, I'm calling you out, Jared.
You're calling me out?
Yeah, I'm calling you out.
Oh,
You have a something in relation to your job. Do you mind if I give you a plug?
sure.
Sure. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but Jared is, well, what is your title? It's
Uh, Technically the title is producer.
producer. Yeah, he's a producer on the show Tough as Nails, a CBS show that's getting started here in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it airs the first episode, or season 3 starts 3 weeks from yesterday, so October 6th, Wednesday
All
night.
right. I've watched a few episodes of season one. I love it. I'm hooked.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun show to work on, and the host and creator of this show is also the host of The Amazing Race. His name is Phil Kogan. And,
Yeah.
um,
Famous
yeah,
guy.
yeah, he's great, and the show is fantastic. It's one that you can watch with your family, and it just celebrates people in the trades and just the hardworking people of America. So
Yeah, that's great.
proud of.
Yeah, it's awesome. So far, so good. Well, I just wanted to let everybody know, what you do. Most of my followers know I'm in the military, but we got to give you a shout out. So
Well, thank you. I thought you said you were going to put me on the spot. I'm like, oh, are you going to?
that
Are
came out wrong.
you gonna
Okay, well, so all right. Well, we're going to talk about Blackbeard's ghost today, and like we do with every show, we're going to kick off and show off some of our Blackbeard ghost items in our collection. So why don't you start? What do you got? You got a bird.
I do. Well, okay. So I don't. The past couple ones, I've actually had a bunch of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Blackbeard's Ghost. I do not have as many items. I have the DVD. I
Okay.
have the VHS, of course, and then I have a couple like novel. Like I believe they're based on. It's by Ben Stull. Maybe it is the entire. I actually haven't read them, but basically they're just the Disney versions of the story. The bird is just something that I had that I thought
It works.
the keys from the Pirates of the Caribbean. It's from Disneyland.
Oh, neat.
I stuck them on his foot.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I this book at a thrift store a couple months ago in Glendale. Great moments in fiction, but it actually has the story of Blackbeard's ghost with a bunch of different pictures
Nice.
of the film.
Oh,
So
that's cool. I like that.
it's fun. So I don't know if you have what you have, but I know that we've kind of like done a little storybook type thing each week.
Yep. So what I've got is, well, of course, I've got the movie playing
Oh,
in the background. There's Gudger Larkin. We're going to talk about him. I've got a theatrical movie poster right there.
oh
That's
wow,
that's cool. It's a replica, but it's
that's
awesome. I love that poster. It's pretty nice. Uh, Disney Movies and Music Collection loves the film. Good. I'm glad. I've got the lobby card set that we'll go through, and the DVD, and I've got the storybook album. So
wow.
actually, there's two albums. There's this one, which is just the record, no storybook, and then I've got the actual storybook, the one that we've kind of like used when we talked about the No Mobile and the one and only genuine family band. So we can kind of go through this too. It's got a lot of great artwork in it.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah. So that's what I got. So we'll have some cool visuals for you guys again to show off while we're going through the film. And just like last time, gonna let uh, Jared kick it off, and he's gonna kind of go through the a little bit of background on the film, like who directed it, who wrote the book, and
Hmm.
who was the producer, and all that stuff. And we're gonna do a little different there. When I go through the plot, as we meet the characters, we're gonna kind of take a little time out, and we'll talk about the characters a little bit. So
Yes.
that might flow a little bit better. And and if we get stuck on something, Chris is in the chat to look stuff up for us and correct us when we're wrong and yell at us if we say something wrong. I know he's going to do that. So
Please do.
let's really quick see if there's any questions yet. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. We like try to stop and acknowledge your questions and answer them if we can, or say that we're going to get to it soon. Uh, and Liz Nefmick, how you doing? She says, or he says, I can't tell. It's a lady. Hi. This is one of my favorite films. Peter Ustinov is just the best. Yes, absolutely one of the best.
Fantastic.
Chris is giving away the title of one of the songs in the movie. We'll get to that later. Jack has a painting of Aldita that was commissioned from a friend. That is awesome. I want to see that. Please post it and
Uh,
tag us,
yes.
Jack, on an
Please.
Instagram post. I would love to see that. I love the painting in the film. So, who doesn't love Dean Jones and Peter Ustinov? I mean, if you don't love them after watching this, I think you're probably dead. So, they're great.
Not unlike Blackbeard.
Yeah, not unlike Blackbeard or Miss Stowcroft. Who shall accommodate the living, but who shall accommodate the dead?
Oh, and by
All
the
right.
way, we'll mention this, but this is, and the past couple times we've done it, we've picked a couple of movies that were not available on Disney Plus. Blackbeard's Ghost is on Disney Plus, so if you
Yeah,
haven't
it
seen it
absolutely
or if
is.
you haven't watched in a while, watch it.
Hmm. Yeah, so that was kind of what we planned. We knew we had gone off Disney Plus a couple weeks in a row or month or whatever it was, the last two shows, and we wanted to kind of throw this one out there. So you could immediately watch this after we're done here. Let's also talk about how awesome Jared's laugh is.
Yes,
Skeena, Skeena. It is.
that's my friend Christina. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for joining us. He does have a good laugh. It gets me going.
Oh my.
All right, so go ahead and kick us off. Blackbeard's Ghost, 1968.
So Blackbeard's Ghost, 1968. It was actually released in February of 1968, February 8th. It grossed worldwide. It grossed a little over $20 million, which for that time was actually pretty big. Even though, I know a lot of the people in this chat and who are watching this and know a lot about the live action Disney films. They're fond of Blackbeard's ghost, but it wasn't necessarily one that stuck out with everybody and lived with everybody like the Mary Poppins or the Pete's Dragon and Parent Trap, stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to know that it did make some money for Disney back then. It was based on a book by Ben Stahl. And it was written, partway through it was written, actually, Ben, if you don't mind, I'm going to stick this in here, but Ben, showed Walt, and Walt loved the part that he read. And so he's like, finish the book, and then I'll read it all, because I think I want to go through with this and make a film out of it. And he finished the book, Walt read it, and Walt loved it and signed to do it. This was his first novel. Actually, Ben Stahl only wrote 2. He wrote a sequel to this one as well. And it's called The Secret of Red Skull, which is the sequel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, Walt signed off, and it's directed by someone who we talked about 2 of the 3 other times, Robert Stevenson, who was just huge and directed some of my favorite stuff ever to come out of the Disney canon. Really quick, I'll just go through them really quick, just for anybody who might not know. But starting with Johnny Tremaine, Old Yeller, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Kidnapped, Absent-Minded Professor, In Search of the Castaway, Son of Flubber, Misadventures of Merlin Jones, Mary Poppins, The Monkey's Uncle, That Darn Cat, my favorite, The No-Mobile, then of course Blackbeard's Ghost, The Love Bug, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Herbie Rides Again, The Island at the Top of the World, One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, and The Shaggy DA. Those are just the theatrical films he directed, which is just unbelievable. Could you imagine having that on your resume?
Yeah, I mean, he'd have like a too long of a resume to take into an interview.
No, it's like I would. It's amazing. Bedknobs and Broomstick. Like, yeah, this is great. So anyway, but the thing is, it was also produced. It was produced by Bill Walsh, who has just as much of a resume as a producer. Starting with the 1 Hour in Wonderland TV special back in 1950. Like he produced television and films for the Disney company. And I'm not going to read off everything, but I'll read off some of my favorites and some of the more well-known stuff. But like the Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier and its sequel, Adventures of Spin and Marty TV series, the Westward Ho! The Wagons, Mickey Mouse Club, and then the Annette serial, Shaggy Dog, Toby Tyler, or 10 Weeks with the Circus, Absent-Minded Professor and Son of Flubber, Mary Poppins, That Darn Cat, Lieutenant Robin Crusoe, USN, Scandalous John's not one of my favorites, but The Love
It's got
Bug,
a great soundtrack, though.
there you go.
Yeah.
The Love Bug, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and Herbie Rides Again. So he's also a huge producer as well. So the fact that they have this director, they have this producer, and Walt just signing off on this is just, it's a recipe. Like, and at this point, we haven't even mentioned the cast. At this point, it's going to be a recipe for a great film, I believe.
Yeah, totally. Michael asked, what was the argument that Walt and Dean Jones had about this movie? Well, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later, Michael. If we don't, I'll hit you up one more time and you can give us the answer. I'm not sure. Maybe you have something to say on that later,
I do
Jared.
not. I do not actually.
Okay. Yeah, I did a lot of research that didn't come up in mine. But if anybody wants to answer that question, like Chris, he might know.
Let's see. Should we go over some of these
The
comments?
comments here. Stahl was also a painter. Yeah, that's cool. The guy that wrote the book. Um, and a couple people have that book. That's great. That Darn Cat, you mentioned that. It's on Disney Plus, of course. One of Disney's light movies, of course. Yeah, and Plus Ultra Sydney says they've never heard of it and are trying to watch all the live action stuff. So hopefully we'll get you excited
Well, I'm
about
not
this.
my Instagram, but I guess I kind of am. But plus Ultra Sydney, if you're not following me, you should follow me because I have a lot of this old live action Disney stuff on there. So maybe you can find
Hmm.
some new
Chris
movies.
says not enough cowbell. Is that why Jones and Walt got into it? I guess. That's a good answer. We'll leave it at that. So where are we at on the screenplay?
the the screenplay. Let's see. Yes. So, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I have this stuff all together, and I just am.
Oh, no worries. I can chime in here a little bit.
Yeah, let's try. Let's have you.
Okay. It's like you're what you had already done up to this point, like you were reading right off my script. So, screenplay Bill Walsh and Don DeGrotty, and they both done. I mean, a ton of stuff, and just I wrote everything down, but we could get pretty long. Bill Walsh, Dumbo, a lot of shorts like the Olympic Champ, How to Fish, Der Fuhrer's Face, Victory Vehicles, Victory Through Air Power, How to Be a Sailor, The Three Caballeros, Fun and Fancy Free, Make Mine Music, Johnny Appleseed, Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Just a ton of stuff that these guys all worked on together. And for live action, we've got Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Pollyanna, Kidnapped, The Parent Trap, Absent Minded Professor, Flubber, Son of Flubber, and the list goes on. So Walt picked folks that had serious street creds,
Yeah, for real.
and so we, based on the cast, of the screenplay writers, the producer, co-producer, set decorators, Emil Curie, Hal Gossman, matte artist Peter Ellenshaw. These are all A-list folks that have tons of years of experience. I did want to talk about the special effects guys real quick
Hmm.
because these guys don't get a lot of credit for what, and this film showcases their talent in a big way. So we've got Eustace Lysett and Robert A. Maddie are the two gentlemen that worked the special effects for these films. And so I just wanted to briefly, unless you had done this, did you go through these guys' careers here?
Um, I have the Eustace stuff, and
Okay, go ahead with Eustace, and I'll talk about
his
Robert.
his special effects started, with the Disney, starting in with Absent Minded. Like you're right. These people have such a list of movies, but Absent Minded Professor, which in 1961, you think of that. That's when they invented the flubber and the flying car and all of that kind of stuff, and the basketball game where they're just jumping up over top of the hoop and all of that kind of stuff. So he worked with that, Babes in Toyland. I know this is Chris's favorite one, but Moon Pilot, he did the special effects for that. Shout out to Chris. Uh, and then, I'm not sure exactly what the special effects were in Summer Magic, but he did that. And then, of course, Mary Poppins, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Darn Cat, Ugly Dachshund, Lieutenant Robin Crusoe USN, Follow Me Boys, Adventures of Bullwhip Griffin, uh, The Gnome Mobile, The Happiest Millionaire, Never a Dull Moment, Rascal, The Boatniks, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Now you see him, now you don't, which the special effects are very insane on that one as well. Even for the early 70s, Snowball Express, World's Greatest Athlete, Charlie and the Angel, Herbie Rides Again, No Deposit, No Return, Treasure of Matacumbe, Gus, Shaggy DA, Freaky Friday from 76, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, Pete's Dragon, Return from Witch Mountain, Cat from Outer Space, Hot Lead, Cold Feet, North Avenue Irregulars, and The Last Flight of Noah's Ark. I mean, that goes all the way up to 1980, but he also worked on visual effects in a capacity with The Black Hole, The Island at the Top of the World, Million Dollar Duck, Barefoot Executive, like 101 Dalmatians, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Sleeping Beauty. So his is another resume to admire, and just
Yeah, right.
if you want a crash course in Disney live action, look up Eustace Lysette and just watch his movies.
Yeah, he was with the company for a long time. He started in 1937. He actually worked on the multiplane camera with Bambi and Pinocchio, and just a master of photographic effects that we see throughout this picture, and all the ones that you mentioned. Because each film you mention, I can pick out little scenes in my mind that's Eustace Lysette's work.
Mm-hmm.
Any of that quick time looking camera work, or anytime somebody does something superhuman on screen, that's him. And it's also Robert Matty. I'll talk about him briefly. He got his start working with Harper Goff, mechanizing the giant squid in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Wow.
And of course, the film and that scene were such a hit that Walt offered Bob a permanent position at the studio in the mechanical effects department. So Robert Matty went on to design the Jungle Cruise with Harper Goff, the Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland. He designed Timothy Q. Mouse, that little figure that sits atop the Dumbo attraction in Fantasyland.
Oh yeah.
He designed and created the finale of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So the part where you go to hell, that's
Yep.
all Robert Matty right there. And along with Eustace Lysett, he was Mary Poppins winner of the Oscar they won for Best Visual Effects. He was also nominated with Eustace on The Absent-Minded Professor, and he worked on other films, including The Happiest Millionaire, The Love Bug, and he was honored with a window on Main Street, USA in Disneyland for his work in the park. So a great shout out to these guys, Matty and Lysett. And as we talk through the plot, we'll kind of pick out, like, there's their handiwork, which really makes this film such a delightful piece of cinema to behold.
I will also add in for Matty, or I'm sorry, right, yeah, Robert Matty, that he also worked on some special effects for Jaws, which is not a Disney film, but
I saw that. Yeah,
yes,
that's what really put him on the map.
which is insane to me.
Hmm. Yeah, he worked on creating that big shark. So what else do we have to say before we get into the plot here?
I don't
I
think we
think,
have much to say. No, I'm sure once we go through. Well, actually, you know what? I will say. So it was released in 1968. What I did find was interesting was that was 250 years to the year of the death of the real Blackbeard,
wow,
Edward T. Yeah.
that's cool.
So I'm not sure if that was just a coincidence, but yeah.
It could have been on Walt's mind, when did he want to do this picture? So speaking of Walt, he did have a significant involvement in the production of this picture, despite it releasing after his death. You'd mentioned that he was friends with the author. He
Hmm.
actually purchased the rights to the book before it was even published.
Yep.
And so he worked alongside Stahl and pitched the idea to Walsh and DeGrady, the screenplay guys we talked about. And it was his idea to come up with this track coach that would conjure up the old pirate Blackbeard and then the scheme to have him hilariously and I guess illegally help the Wolfville track team win. And that would be his good deed to escape limbo. And so that was his idea. And his very last visit to the studio before he died, on that day, he visited the set of Blackbeard's Ghost to see how things were progressing and to offer some suggestions to Robert Stevenson. So that's kind of sad to think of that, but when you watch this film, you can definitely see Walt Disney's influence in it. Not only because he picked the best people to work on it, but because his imagination is at work and showcased through the talents of everybody that worked on this film. So let's go ahead and start talking about the movie. But before that, let's catch up on everybody. We got Disney Movies and Music Collector, who, by the way, I just started following, and he's got a great account. He shows
Yep.
follow him, you guys. He shows off his record collection, some of his movies. He says Darby O'Gill rocks. The DVD has a behind the scenes section. Yeah, it's one of the few that has really good bonus features on it. Celebration Disney, hi, he's on and off. Good. Of course, again, I'll archive this video and post it up after we're done so you could hear the whole thing. Is Dean Jones the most used actor by Disney? Not quite.
No.
There are a couple more. And if you don't count character actors, but Kurt Russell is one that comes to mind that's probably been in more films than Dean Jones.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. All right. And Chris says, beware of haunted bed warmers. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about bed warmers.
Do it.
So, all right. And I'm going to go through this. And then whenever we meet a cast member, Jared's going to tell us a little bit about him.
And I apologize if my computer keeps dinging, but I do have to make sure that I'm in communication with work.
Okay. Yeah. You're a busy TV person. So Kevin Corcoran was busy. Yeah, he was in a ton of stuff. So, all right. So this is an interesting film in that it's got that opening scroll that shows up at the beginning. And I'll read it to you guys. It says, in the early years of the 18th century, almost like Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get serious Star Wars vibes. So this scroll comes up and you got this great music playing and you see the wicked wench battling the waves off the coast of Carolina. I love that overture that plays during this. We'll talk a little bit about the music later, but in the early years of the 18th century lived the pirate Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard. From the Spanish Main to the Carolinas, he wrought a bloody tale of destruction, unparalleled for its ferocity and terror. Blackbeard was killed in sea battle off the American shore. This was followed by widespread joy when it became known the dread pirate had gone at last. Or had he? Cliffhanger.
Tune in.
Tune in. So we go through the credits. Again, the music is playing. I love the music. It just kind of has this great overture. And then this little harpsichord theme that we hear over and over again throughout the movie. It's kind of like your little tip that Blackbeard's about to show up. So we meet Coach Steve Walker. He's driving a convertible down the coastline towards Godolphin, which is a small coastal Carolina town. And he's on his way to start a new job as coach of the Godolphin track meet. And so let's talk about Dean Jones. And
Yeah,
I'll get the lobby cards going here. Well, there's Blackbeard right there. So go ahead and tell us all about Dean Jones.
Yeah, Dean Jones plays Steve Walker. We were asked if he was the most used actor. I would probably say no, but he was definitely used a lot. In films, his first role was That Darn Cat in 1965. He kind of actually traded off with Haley Mills because that was her last role.
Changing of the Guard. Yeah.
Changing of the Guard. The next year, he did The Ugly Dachshund with another actress who we will talk about a little bit later. The year after that, 1967, he did Monkeys Go Home. In 1968, he was actually very busy with Blackbeard's Ghost, The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit, and then The Love Bug, which was released at the very end of 68. In 1971, he made the Million Dollar Duck. Now, this wasn't the most loved by people, but I will tell you, I do have a special place in my heart for this one because I love Sandy Duncan. Watch Million Dollar Duck. It's on Disney Plus. And then in 1972, he did Snowball Express. In 1976, so it was a 4-year break, he did The Shaggy DA, which was the sequel to The Shaggy Dog. And what's interesting about this one is he also sang the title song for that film.
Yeah, he sure did. He kind of like sing-spieled it,
Yes.
like talk singing. But yeah, yeah. Kind of reminds me of how Fred McMurray did a song on the Absent Minded Professor album.
Yes,
The
he did.
Flubber song.
Flubber song, yes.
Yeah.
And then in 1977, he did one of the sequels to The Love Bug, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. So he wasn't in all of the Herbie movies. And then he took a 20-year break from the big screen with Disney, only to bookend his theatrical career with the remake of That Darn Cat in 1997, which I personally think is terrible. And I'm sorry if anybody who's watching this likes that one, but the remake is just bad. And in TV, he did a few things. He was himself in a TV special Mickey's 50 in 1978. He was the host of 2 other specials, the Mickey Mouse Anniversary Show in 1968, and then Disney's Greatest Dog Stars in 1976. He was in a very short-lived TV series called Herbie the Love Bug in 1982, which, incidentally, he also sang the title song for. And then he was in a couple other made-for-TV remakes of Disney movies. In 1995, he was in the remake of The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. And then in 1997, he was also in the remake of The Love Bug. And then
Yeah,
a film I think other people might recognize him in later on in his career was he played the villain in the movie Beethoven in 1992. And I know that when I watched that movie, I immediately thought of, Million Dollar Duck and Dean Jones and all that kind of stuff. So I was excited to see him in that role.
he did a ton of stuff, so maybe he does rival Kurt Russell a bit. So yeah, Dean Jones just kind of pulls off comedic gold in this movie, especially when reacting to all the shenanigans around him with Peter Ustinov, and most notably, like him talking and reacting to Thin Air. It's very convincing. So
Well, he's very like if you just look at Dean Jones, he's very like straight laced and very well dressed and very mild mannered. But this is where you can tell he's such a good actor, is that he can do the comedy stuff, he can do the serious stuff, he can do the romantic stuff, and pull it all off. And then in Blackbeard's Ghost, he kind of has all three.
yeah, good points. Right, outstanding. So, all right. So he is on his way to Godolphin. He pulls into a service station and for a fill up, which is kind of funny because he's like only 3 miles away from the town. uh, really quick. Chris mentioned the harpsichord music was popular around this time. It's in a lot of Disney films. It's in Pirates. Yep, good. So Ryan asked where a good place was to buy these old movies, and I threw a couple out there. Other people are chiming in. eBay's a good place. Amazon, Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Chris always loves the specials. He mentioned that Dean Jones was in the amazing 10th anniversary special for Walt Disney World, which is hilarious.
So good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, and Chris and I have laughed for hours watching that. There's some
Wait, is
hilarious
that on
stuff.
YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, you can watch it on YouTube for sure.
I'm screenshotting this
Yeah.
and making sure to go back to watch
Hmm.
YouTube.
It's good. So he's filling up 3 miles to town, and he meets Gudger Larkin, the attendant who's about to close up shop. And turns out he's the captain of the track team, and he offers Steve Walker, or Coach. I'll either call him Steve, I'll call him Coach Walker, directions to Blackbeard's Inn, where he's going to stay once he arrives in town. And if um, if if he'll give him a lift, then he'll help him get to the inn. So Hank Jones is the gentleman that plays Gudger Larkin, and then we'll just kind of swap here. So I'll talk about Hank.
Okay.
Hank Jones, couldn't find a whole lot about him. He was one of those kind of character actors this time around the Disney studio. He was in Herbie Rides Again, The Shaggy DA, The Cat from Outer Space. That's about all I could find on him. But he's just kind of one of those familiar faces you see in small roles.
Yeah, he was in Small Worlds and actually a bunch of stuff that I found.
Okay.
Starting with Blackbeard's Ghost, but he also had a small role in One and Only Genuine Original Family Band, Barefoot Executive, Million Dollar Duck, and Herbie Rides Again, and No Deposit, No Return.
Yeah, he's just like one of those guys that are hanging around the studio. You know that he probably lived pretty close. So they'd call him up. Hey, Gudger, or not Gudger, Hank, come on over. We need you.
What I did read about him was that this was his favorite film to ever work on, so he made sure that he was right on time or early
Okay.
every single
Yeah,
time.
I
It
mean
was his
he had
favorite.
a he. This is probably the film he had the largest part in. So he's around a lot. Oh, did I lose you?
No, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay, a little bit of feedback, but okay, we're good. So on the way to Godolphin, they're cruising along in Steve's convertible. He explains to Coach Walker that the inn that he's going to, it's owned by descendants of Blackbeard's crew, a group of ladies called the Daughters of the Buccaneers, and they arrive at Blackbeard's Inn, where there's a charity bazaar and an auction taking place. It's an event to raise money so the ladies can pay off the mortgage on the inn. And as they attempt to park, they're pulling in, going to go have a good time at this hotel here. Silky Seymour and his boys just kind of like swipe his parking spot. And Gudger tells Coach Walker, don't get mixed up with Silky and his boys. They run the gambling show in town. And oh, by the way, they own the mortgage on this property and are threatening to foreclose. So they're really not nice dudes. So stay away. So Coach Walker, he tries to check into his hotel. He's looking for Miss Stowcroft and can't seem to find her. So he's kind of walking around this hotel, and while he does, we get a really good look at this unique kind of hotel that's built from timbers of shipwrecked vessels. Like for example, like the entire stern of one of the vessels adorns the whole facade of this building. And of course, when you're looking at this scene, it's a matte painting by Ellen Shaw, which is superb. And then as you're walking around the interior, it's of course well appointed with a lot of items you'd find on the deck of a ship, and it's really cool to look at. And I think one of the coolest things is there's this granny band in there jamming on the stage.
It reminded me a little bit of Pollyanna.
Yeah,
Who was
it totally did. Yeah, it totally reminded me of Pollyanna. So, so
Granny Band. I love
the
it.
granny band. Yeah, I mean it's a rocking and rolling bazaar here. There's Blackbeard here. Okay, there's nothing next. So, what's going on here? We're with Steve inside the hotel, and after he's getting the runaround trying to find Miss Stowcraft, he runs into the Dean Wheaton, and the football coach, and they inform him, kind of like not in a nice way, that we don't really care about track. Football's the star of the show at Godolphin, welcome to Godolphin, whatever, but, football. So
Hmm.
here we meet Richard Deacon. So why don't you tell us about him a little bit?
I'll go over him really quickly. We have
He's
so
been in every movie we've done.
he's been in every movie we've done except Parent Trap,
That's right. Well, we
but
like him.
we do like him. Really quick, then he was in That Darn Cat, Lieutenant Robin Crusoe USN, as the survival manual narrator, and then the Gnome Mobile again as Yarby, Blackbeard's Ghost, and then One and Only Genuine Original Family Band. And then he appeared in a few TV stuff, Zorro, Mickey Mouse Club, and the Annette serial.
Yeah. So, Dean Jones, Hank. What am I talking about? It's like- so Walker, he's like, I'm not gonna mess up with your football, whatever, guys. I'm out of here. I'm gonna go find Miss Stowcroft so I can get my room. He's been driving ever since 5 a.m. in the morning. He's tired, so he goes outside, and this is where all the action's taking place on this bazaar. So
Hmm.
he comes across this place called Granny Woman's Fortunes and Incantations.
It just rolls off the tongue.
It does. this is this is where we meet Miss Stowcroft for the first time, and she's played by Elsa Lanchester. And Elsa, we know her as Katie Nana from Mary Poppins. Of course, one of my favorite roles, Mrs. McDougal in That Darn Cat. She also had a small role in the film Rascal, if
Hmm.
you've seen that one, and the made-for-TV flick My Dog the Thief. She really shines though in the few minutes she has on screen. She's not in a lot of scenes, but every scene she's in is so memorable. Of course, Dean Jones comes into the tent there, and she she's in total character, and and Dean Jones is like, "Hey, I need a room," and she's like, "Well, we accommodate the living, but who shall accommodate the dead?" It's just completely in character. She calls him Ishmael, proceeds to tell him his fortune, and it's an interesting fortune because it's a foreshadowing of the whole film.
Hmm.
Except the only difference is, Ishmael may have to sacrifice his life in the end, which, spoiler alert, doesn't end up happening. His life is in no way in danger. But so, still without a room, he departs and approaches a kissing booth where he meets the executive committee. And Todd Provis, one of my good friends, he's like, this was every male cast member's favorite film because Suzanne Plachette was in the cast. I love that he says that. Uh, why isn't Richard Deacon a Disney legend? Yeah, I have no idea. He should absolutely be what you replied to. Yeah. And Jim, I'm with you. She keeps calling him Ishmael. It's hilarious. And he's just like had enough. He's like, I want my room, dang it. I'm
You know,
not Ishmael.
I will say about her before we move on is she's such an amazing actress, and and a couple of things that she didn't do for Disney, but like she was the Bride of Frankenstein, which I think I knew but didn't really fully realize
Hmm.
until researching this, which is like that's an iconic role. And then one other film that is not Disney, but I love it. I watch it every Christmas. It's called Come to the Stable. Uh,
Oh, I'll
have you?
have to check that out. I'm a big Christmas movie nut. Come
Yeah,
to the stable. Okay.
it's not extremely overtly Christmas, but it does happen at that time, and it has Celeste Holm and oh shoot, Loretta Young.
Loretta Young. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I love her. She was also in another Christmas film with, I want to say, Cary Grant,
Oh, The Bishop's Wife.
The
Yeah.
Bishop's Wife. Yes. Yeah.
Oh
Wonderful.
yeah. If you haven't seen Come to the Stable, check it out.
Okay, I'm going to put that on my list. Remind me later.
All right.
All right. Okay, so the kissing booth. I love this scene. so, Dean Jones, he's, I guess he's not tired for kissing. Well, he meets Suzanne Plachette, She's the only member of this executive committee. She's a professor of psychology at Godolphin College. He sees kisses are $1. He throws a buck and sees the professor standing outside and kisses her, only to find out she's not the proprietor of said stand. And this lovely young lady comes out of the woodwork and says, "I am." he gets he obliges. Doesn't no one has to pull his arm. Well, that kind of made Joanne Baker a little jealous because she offers him the $5 special and just lays a big whopper on the coach. He
Mhm.
he opens his wallet to get more money out. So let's talk a little bit about Suzanne Pleshette, the lovely and talented uh, uh, love interest in this film.
Well, Suzanne Pleshette, if you don't know who she is, you will know once you first see her and especially hear her. She has this deep voice, um, similar to like Kathleen Turner. And,
Hmm.
one thing, this isn't a Disney film, but, in 1962, she starred in a movie called 40 Pounds of Trouble with, oh crap, what is his name?
Oh,
He's from Come Like It
yeah,
Hot. Curtis. Something Curtis. Tony
Tony
Curtis.
Curtis. Yep.
Tony Curtis.
Uh-huh.
Uh, uh, and it was filmed by Universal, but the thing that ties it, the reason I brought it up is because it was filmed at Disneyland. And
Hmm.
so that kind of to me, that kind of sets it up for her turn then at Disney, which then she started at the Ugly Dachshund in 1966, along with Dean Jones. And the reason Walt cast her in this role is because they had such great chemistry together in The Ugly Dachshund. In 1967, she also did The Adventures of Bulwer Griffin. Then, of course, Blackbeard's Ghost. She played again with Dean Jones in The Shaggy DA. And then she voiced, then it got a little weird. She voiced The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, which is a
Yeah,
straight-to-video movie
I
in
wrote that down.
1998.
Hmm.
And then it's kind of Disney, Studio Ghibli. She also did a voice in the 2001 film Spirited Away, which is also a fantastic film.
Yeah.
I have for her. And then also, I don't know if anybody's a Will and Grace fan, but she was also Karen Walker's mom on Will and Grace in several episodes
Okay.
before she
Yeah.
passed.
There is a lot. People are really going to town on Suzanne Pleshette. So uh, before that, though, Todd or Probus asks, was there ever a reason given why she kept calling him Ishmael? I don't know. It's just one of Elsa Lanchester's goofy mannerism things she's got going on. I have no idea why. Who Ishmael is? Maybe it was her long lost son. Maybe he was lost at sea, or she's communicating with him through that seance. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe he's a character in the sequel.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So back to Suzanne Pleshette, the birds, of course.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
or
Yeah. She got her eyes poked out in that. Um, Bob Newhart's wife, of course, on that show, the greatest TV series, Final Scene ever. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What was the name of that show? Just Newhart?
Newhart, I believe.
Yeah.
But then,
Jamie Lee Curtis's dad?
yeah, talking about Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis, right.
Yeah.
Okay, of course. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. You know what? She was so much better in this than Ugly Dachshund. So I'm really glad she was much more engaging and lovable in this film compared
Yeah,
to that one.
she was definitely more likable. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah. And I love how she just turns on the charm right at the beginning. So there is no question in anyone's mind that she's head over heels for Dean Jones right at the start.
absolutely.
Which is pretty central to the plot because she sticks it out with them despite things that are going to happen here. So, all right, so we're at the auction scene now. So remember, Silky and his boys are there. They don't want anybody to bid on anything. They don't want the grannies to get any money to pay off this mortgage. and because there's a reason why, and I'll explain that here in a minute. So everybody's bidding. The first item is a gun. It goes for $100. So Silky and his boys start approaching all the bidders, warning them, "Don't bid, or you'll be sorry." And we meet just a couple. I'm not going to talk about all of his men, but a couple, just the one, Norm Grabowski. We've seen him before in the No Mobile, and he's in The Son of Flubber. Merwin Jones, Monkey's uncle, has a small part in The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit with Dean Jones, and The Happiest Millionaire. Security guard in Herbie Rides Again, but a familiar face nonetheless. And so he's out there telling people to not bid, and also Silky Seymour, he's out there doing the same thing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Silky? He didn't do too much for Disney, but
No, he didn't do too much for Disney, and he only did The Adventures of Bullwhip Griffin with Suzanne, Blackbeard's Ghost with Suzanne Plachette, and then we got Super Dad in 1973 with Kurt Russell.
yeah.
His name is Joby Baker, and I'm surprised he didn't do more for Disney because he looks very Disney. I know that that's not the best thing to say, but he very much had a look of it like a Disney villain. He did the basic rounds of TV shows like the Dick Van Dyke Show, F Troop, stuff like that as well. And then he was also in several Gidget films.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, he's got this perfect villain look to him. He's kind of like smooth talking, yet he doesn't really let loose. He's kind of sneakishly evil. I don't really know how to describe it better than that, but a great character. Folks in the chat are pretty active. They're talking about Ishmael. Plus Ultra Sydney says Ishmael's from Moby Dick. Alice agrees, and I'm with Todd. That's what I get for never reading Moby Dick, so I didn't know either.
Me too.
Plus Ultra says I read it because of Star Trek. And Chris lives near Bedford, Massachusetts, where they Moby Dick the story takes place. So yeah, there's the connection right there. That totally makes sense. Thanks, guys.
I love this stuff.
Yeah. All right, so back to this auction, and Silky and Norm, they're just like being really nasty, trying to get people to not bid, which works, But the next item that comes up is an antique bed warmer, and Coach Walker, already been being cut off in the parking lot is kind of pissed off at Silky, so he's not listening to a word he has to say. So he bids anyways on this antique bed warmer, which was owned by the sorceress Alditha Teach, Blackbeard's 10th wife. And so he gets into this bidding war with the football coach and ends up winning it. And back inside the hotel, he goes to receive his prize from Professor Baker. And she kind of explains what's going on with Silky and why he's there. So they're there to interfere with the bidding because he didn't want the ladies to earn the money to pay off the mortgage. And the reason why is he wants to foreclose on that mortgage, and the deadline was coming up quick. And after he'd foreclose on the mortgage, he'd tear the place down and build this huge casino on the property. So that's the reason why. So he's got his bedpan warmer, he's ready to hit the sack. And finally, he meets up with Miss Stowcroft, who is now in her regular character. And she decides to give him Blackbeard's room in the end. Of course. Why wouldn't she?
Why not?
So it's hilarious. I just love this scene when she explains, like, this is Blackbeard's old room and the history lesson she gives him, and who the former owner of the bed warmer was, and she goes on to explain that the marriage to Alditha Teach didn't end well. Blackbeard had her burned, or so it was thought. And as the flames rose up, she put a curse on Blackbeard that resulted in him remaining in limbo after his death until such time he showed a spark of kindness toward his fellow man. I can't even do Elsa Lanchester justice here, so you just have to watch the film. It's just great. So Steve is sort of amused, half paying attention, and he gets ready for bed, and he goes to sit down on the bed, and what do you know? He breaks the bed warmer handle in half. And so he picks it up. He's like, "Oh, my $200, darn it!" But he sees this little scroll inside. He pulls it out, and just like um, who am I thinking of in the Shaggy Dog? Tommy Kirk with the ring. I mean, if you have a scroll with spells on it, you got to start reading it out loud, right?
Of course.
Of course. So he reads it out loud. Cree, crew, vergo, geba, calto, cree, and then lightning strikes. Claps of thunder are heard, and Blackbeard appears, and he approaches Steve with a cutlass drawn. And Steve's kind of like, "What is going on here? I don't believe what I'm seeing." And he urges Blackbeard to go ahead and pierce him with the sword because you're not real, but it most certainly is real.
I wouldn't walk into a sword if I was testing that theory, though.
Yeah, I know. It's a good thing he didn't walk too far. So Blackbeard he kind of explains to him, the reason why I'm here is because of Aldita's spells, that witch, and I'm here, and I'm only going to be able to be seen by you. And I mean, Peter Ustinov here is just he's another guy I couldn't even try to mimic because he's just got this outstanding his mannerisms, the way he talks are just amazing. Okay, so somebody's talking about the picture on the wall of Aldita. Yeah, that's a scary picture. Isn't that in Disneyland somewhere?
It looks like it would be on Haunted Mansion. I will say that the painting of Blackbeard that was in the lobby of the hotel, they had in Disneyland in the Pirates of the Caribbean. They had a smaller version.
Yeah, it was in that final scene when the before Jack Sparrow was put into the attraction. There were a couple pirates in there carrying loot around, and I think one of them was carrying this picture of Blackbeard. So, a couple comments here. Let's see. He had one. Peter Ustinov had one of the best live-action Disney villain voices ever. I think is he talking about Silky, or Todd? Are you talking about Silky, or are you talking about Blackbeard?
I think talking Silky. About Silky.
Yeah. It was $200 in 1968 is equivalent to $1,600 today. Yeah, I'd be kind of upset if I broke that bed warmer. Oh, Todd was talking about Silky. Thanks. So, so he explains to Coach Walker, how he appears, and I lost my place here. And okay, sorry. Scroll down. Okay, so he's thirsty, I guess. So he's appearing to Dean Jones, and then he decides, what I need to do? I need to go get some rum from the bar downstairs. And this is when Steve notices that only he can see him, because Blackbeard pretty much walks right by Miss Stowcroft, who can't see him, and just grabs the bottle of rum and goes back upstairs. And I guess it's been a long day for him, so it's time to go to bed. And he proceeds to get into his bed, because this is his room, after all. He did procure said bed after killing a Portuguese man for it, and tells Steve all about that. So, of course, Steve's upset that, that's his bed. So they try to share it, and Steve is just, he's not having it. He keeps talking in his sleep and acting out scenes of his old pirate days. And Steve's like, you know what? That's it. I need to sleep. I got to get out of here. I got to get rid of you. I don't believe you're real. You're just a crazy pirate who loves rum, and I don't drink, so I'm out of here. So he leaves the inn and heads to the Jolly Roger Motel. But one aspect of this curse is that wherever he goes, Blackbeard has to follow, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, there he is. So he's like cruising in his car. He starts smelling him. He's like, oh, well, crap, you're back. How do I get rid of you? So, and Blackbeard's like, you can't. We're in this together. So he does realize that he does. Well, that comes later, actually, in the prison scene. So, yeah, they're cruising along in the car, and Blackbeard becomes curious about the manner of craft they are traveling in. And he wants to take the helm. And so, naturally, in Disney fashion, this leads to quite the scene through the small town as they're fighting over who drives the car, and they're crashing through fences and driving through porches.
Well, and they
And
drive all the way from a Carolina coast to Burbank
yeah,
through the back lot.
right. So it's like Chris is sleepy, so he's got to check out. Thanks, Chris, for hanging in there with us a little bit. Oh, Alice knows a little bit about that painting. It's not in Haunted Mansion. Alditha's painting. It's in a private collector's home. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that. And Blackbeard response, don't drink. Okay.
Well, one
Yep.
thing I did you want me to go over Peter Ustinov?
Oh, did we skip him?
We did.
We totally did.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us about him.
I mean, it's really, really quick. That I'll just go over his Disney canon, but he's the star of this show, of this movie, Blackbeard's Ghost. But some other things you'll recognize him from. He was the voice of Prince John, King Richard in Robin Hood in 1973. Blackbeard's Ghost was actually his first Disney.
Yeah, he was also the voice of. Oh, you did say King Richard. Yeah,
Yeah.
both. Okay.
Yep. And then he was in One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing and Treasure of Matacumbe. And then this wasn't Disney at the time, but it's Disney now. He was also in The Great Muppet Caper. And then on TV, he also appeared in an episode of The Muppet Show in 1976. So I just included those.
All right. Yeah, I loved him in Treasure of Matacumbe. That's a really good movie. One of his lesser known roles. All right. Well, we're at an hour now, so let's kind of get going here.
Yes.
All right. So we are in that car chasing scene. So they nearly run over an officer played by Kelly Thornton, who we see in a lot of other films, and he plays a cop.
He plays a cop in every other film that he's done,
Yeah.
by the way.
And there he is running away from Blackbeard because he stole his motorcycle as Dean Jones was getting arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of cool special effects Lysett and Maddie did here, like the pencil breaking in midair as Thornton tries to write a ticket. Blackbeard's trying to pull all the tickets out of his little ticket book there, and so you just see a ticket book suspended in the air with tickets flying out of it. It's a great scene. The motorcycle kind of driving itself around the car.
So fun to watch.
And yeah, I love that scene. It's probably one of my favorites. So, of course, this is going to end up not good for Coach Walker. He gets arrested. And so the next scene we see Walker is in his cell. And, of course, Blackbeard has to be wherever he is. So they get to talking, and, Steve is all about getting rid of Blackbeard. He just doesn't want him around. So he remembers that Miss Stowcroft told him that if he could perform a good deed, that he would be rid of this limbo situation, and in turn Steve would be rid of the pirate. So he's like, why don't you just give the old ladies your treasure, and they can pay the mortgage off with that? You can get a bridge, you can get a school named after you. Where's your treasure? Blackbeard's like, it's gone. I spent it on a wild week among the flesh pots and gambling halls in Port Royal. It was a wild week. So Walker's like, you're just crazy. You're a big phony. You're not even a respectable ghost. So, so there goes that idea. Uh, so the next day, there's like this meeting between Dean Wheaton and Professor Baker and Coach Purvis, the football coach, and they're all discussing how Walker was put into jail and whether or not he should keep his job. Purvis thinks he was stoned. I love that. He was stoned or drunk, but of course the police reports claim that Walker was neither of those and was only talking loudly all night in his cell, which is odd because he was the only one in there. So Wheaton's a little concerned, but decides, we can't get rid of our track coach before the big Broxton relays, which we've been in for 63 years. So Wheaton keeps Walker on and asks Professor Baker to kind of keep an eye on Walker. And so in another scene, she actually informs Wheaton that she intends to do just that because I think she's got a crush on him.
She was, yeah, she was fighting hard for him not to be in.
Yeah, exactly. And so she actually invited him to dinner, and I'm like dropping all my stuff here. So that's the dinner scene that we'll get to later in just a minute. But so real quick, they cut to track practice, and Jones finally gets to meet the rest of his team. And I love your picture down there. Yeah. So he meets the rest of his hapless track team as they are preparing for the relays, and Jones is kind of like, what did I get myself into? And all of a sudden we hear this harpsichord, and that means Blackbeard's back. And so he has this idea for the good deed, the one they couldn't come up with in the prison cell. So while soaking up the nostalgia of Godolphin, he finds his way into Silky's gambling hall and learns that he can get 50-1 odds on the team winning the relays with the help of his invisibility. So he comes up with this plan to make this wager and use the winnings to help the daughters of the Buccaneers pay off the mortgage. So that's the good deed. Walker doesn't buy the idea and wants no part of it because, and while he's doing this, Dean Wheaton and Professor Baker are looking out the window and they see him fighting by himself because he's arguing with Peter Ustinov as to this plan. And it's just a great scene. It's one of the moments where Dean Jones really shines in this film, is like kind of acting with thin air.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a little worried Walker's going nuts. So like I said, Suzanne Pochette is taking him out to dinner, and I love what Jim says about the menus. Yeah, they're huge.
They're gigantic.
They're gigantic menus. So they're at dinner, and Dean Jones.
I'm sorry, they really are. Like, it cuts to them, and you think that they're hiding from someone. They're so big.
I know. Like, who are they trying to hide from? I didn't even notice that. They're like, and they're like, oh, we'll have the shore dinners. The shore dinners are excellent. You don't see their face. You just hear their voices. So they arrive at this restaurant, which is hilarious. Just one of the best scenes in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And more special effects genius. Like when they arrive, you see the door open and close by itself. That means Blackbeard's in there with them. He kind of swipes the rum from the bartender, which is kind of an ongoing gag. But during this whole dinner, Walker's trying to explain his problem, with Blackbeard just tagging along to him, and that he's, if you're wondering about why I'm crazy, I'm not. I'm talking to this guy, and so he's not having much success convincing Suzanne that there's a pirate following him around. And so meanwhile, one of the favorite photos is Blackbeard here. He's kind of lurking behind this aquarium, just spying on him. He's already drunk with the rum, and Dean Jones can smell him nearby. But what he's doing, he's looking for a chance to like get that $900 that Joanne has in her purse, which is odd because the auction was like a week before, but she still has all the money, and it's just a wad of cash. It's just like,
It looks like it's all in ones too.
I know. It's just like, dude, do people carry $900 around loosely like there?
Well, I like when she goes to, she's looking for something and she just randomly just empties $900 in cash right in the middle of a public table.
Yep. So Blackbeard sees it and he's like, "Well, there it is. There's the money I need. $900 at 50 to 1 odds will get him $45,000." So what happens next is, all right, there's this waiter that shows up, and so Blackbeard's like, "Well, I'm gonna trip this guy as he's bringing salad, and that'll cause a scene," which it does. And this waiter is Gil Lamb, and really quick, Gil Lamb, he's in a few other Disney movies like The Ugly Dachshund, The No-Mobile, The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit, The Love Bug, The Boatniks. He was this long and lanky contortionist, and he actually had a skit in vaudeville acts where he would kind of walk around and just spill stuff. It was an act where he would just spill food. And one other neat thing about Gil Lamb is being long and lanky, he was the inspiration for the animators in creation of Ichabod Crane. So he was well known well before.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
You can totally see it.
Yeah.
You can totally see that.
I just love Gil Lamb. He's so funny in this. And so he spills a salad all over the place, and the money gets mixed up in it. And then you see Blackbeard. He's shuffling around on his elbows, and it's like a little bit of camera trickery because he can't move that fast. And so he kind of like doodly doo comes out, grabs the money, back. It's just hilarious. And yeah. Anyone could jack that $900. You're right, Jim. And it turns out Blackbeard got it. So he's got the money. So he takes it to the back of the house there where there's like a gambling, like a sports book kind of place back there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes in there, and in a pretty funny way, he kind of takes advantage of this gentleman that's standing there and puts the $900 on the table, and he gets the bet placed and he gets the receipt. So it's a pretty funny scene. So he's got this receipt, and now he's got to get it back into Joanne's purse. And so here comes Gil Lamb with the ice cream. So, it was a pretty quick dinner, by the way.
Yeah, well, I guess it was so she could just flaunt her money.
Yeah. So he trips up Gil with the ice cream. Boom, there goes the ice cream. There's Gil with a couple scoops of vanilla on his head. And he swipes the purse and puts the receipt for the wager back into Joanne's purse. So we're at the track meet now. That's the next scene, which is kind of like where I'm at in the film here. The track meet, I mean, this is just, all right. This is hilarious. So the track meet starts. We meet the announcer played by Elliot Reed, who we've seen before in movies like That Darn Cat. Not That Darn Cat. Absent-Minded Professor, Son of Flubber. Yeah, Nancy Olsen's kind of, he's hitting on Nancy Olsen, but Fred McMurray, won't have any of that.
Those are the movies I immediately think of him when I hear Elliot Reed. It's the first thing I think of the Absent-Minded Professor.
Yeah.
Flubber. Yeah.
Great actor, and really good in this. He's throwing some serious shade on Godolphin in his opening remarks. Doesn't think they have a chance in HE double hockey sticks to win anything here. They used to be good, but they suck now. And we all know that. We saw him practice. Mm-hmm. So nevertheless, Coach Walker has faith in his team. He delivers this stirring speech to get everybody pumped up. And right at the end of the speech, he sees Professor Baker show up. and she, obviously found the wager slip, and she's kind of upset that Walker did this. Like, she doesn't know Blackbeard did it because she couldn't see Blackbeard the whole night at the restaurant. So he's blaming Walker, even though he had good intentions, but it's pretty stupid because she's not into embezzling monies from the grannies to put it down at a sports book. so so Blackbeard is kind of hanging out in the first aid room back there in the locker room, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna cheat. We're gonna put the money, and we're gonna get 45K and save the grannies. Well, Dean Jones he's a little torn. He wants to help, but also he has morals, right? So he's a little undecided how he wants to go about doing this. So that kind of makes Blackbeard a little, uh, you know, hesitant to help. So he's kind of hanging out. He's chilling out at the track meet, and he's like on top of this ticket booth, and he overhears Silky, this conversation between Silky and Professor Baker, where she asked him to forgive the bet. But, Silky's like, nope, sorry. I'm an honest man. I could never do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Blackbeard overhears that, and he's like, oh, I know that sort. And now he's determined to help Godolphin win the meet. I love the scene where he like kind of jumps off the ticket booth, scares
Yeah,
the ticket salesman, and he like kind of swings down this flagpole.
he's
Oh, we
very
forgot
spry.
about yeah, it's great. It's like this big old fat pirate swinging around a flagpole. It's hilarious. Jim says he almost drinks the rubbing alcohol. Yeah, he was hooked on anything with alcohol in it, even rubbing alcohol. So Blackbeard uses his powers of invisibility to help Godolphin win without Steve's cooperation. So, like I said, the moral dilemma. So Blackbeard's kind of goofing off, helping all the athletes win, dancing with cheerleaders, and this whole scene is just vintage Lysette and Maddie, right? You have, let's see if I got some track scenes here.
I have a couple like here.
Oh, this is afterwards, but yeah. Oh, you've got some really good stills from there. He is dancing with the cheerleaders.
We
Yep.
got him with the. Well, that's not Godolphin, but we got him helping with the track. Oh, you got that.
Yeah, there's that. That's kind of at the end. There he is dancing with the cheerleaders. So I'll leave this one up here. This one's funny because I'll talk about this one here. Um,
It's okay. These scenes are thoroughly ridiculous
yeah, they're
in the
absolutely
best
nuts.
Disney way.
Uh-huh. It's just what we love about Disney, zany comedies.
Yep.
Shot put balls flying through the air, javelins being cut in half. And when the boys are like flying over the bar on the javelin or the high jump bar way up high in the air. And Elliot Reed's looking on. He can't believe anything. A shot put ball destroys his camera. Some
Um,
guy almost gets pierced by a flying javelin that hits the scoreboard.
the oh my gosh, the relay race team are like handing off hot dogs and drink bottles instead of cons.
Yep, it's great. So, they're kind of like tied with one event left, and Blackbeard is like not detecting any gratitude from Walker. So he quits, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he, like you said, he's like he grabs a hot dog, a soda, and a little souvenir pennant, and just kind of lies out on this pole vault pad. And that's when Steve starts to feel a change of heart, and he does so probably about halfway through the relay race, the final race, or the final event with Godolphin and Broxton tied. So Steve's like, "Well, go ahead, man. You've already gone this far. Let's help the ladies. Let's win the bet, whatever." So, using his snacks and souvenirs, he disrupts that last baton exchange, and the other runners, as they're running around the track, they decide they're using a hot dog a pop bottle, and pennant stick as batons, and they have to run backwards. And
So
uh, Gudger Larkin, okay, he's the anchor, right? Todd's like, this made me laugh harder as a kid than any other live action scene. I know, me too. It still cracks me up. It says, okay, Gudger Larkin, when we first met him, we he introduced himself as like being slower than molasses in January, yet he's the anchor for the relay. It's crazy. So he's like noticed everybody running backwards, and he's running past them, and he runs out of gas a few yards from the finish line, and then this happens. Blackbeard picks him up, and he ends up winning the race. Yay, Godolphin!
yay for Black Bear, Godolphin.
No, everybody's so excited. Professor Baker's going to get paid. The Daughters of the Buccaneers, who know about the bet, they're losing their minds. They're thinking Silky, who's who is not pleased with this result, obviously. And Dean Wheaton can't stop yelling, "Go Godolphin! Yay, Godolphin! I hate football!" And the ladies carry Coach Walker off the field, and they're back at the inn, right? Everybody's happy. They've made a fire to burn the mortgage. It's all good times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going great, but it's like kind of funny because then, we see Coach Walker kind of packing up his suitcase. There's a hot dog. This movie has everything. I love it. Okay.
Pirates on
So yeah, that
motorcycles.
track meet race, I think I've watched it like 3 or 4 times. And so there they are carrying off, Dean Jones off the field. Well, anyways, back at the inn, he's packing up. Dean Jones is just like, you know what? We didn't win, honestly. I don't want this on my record. I want to go make a fresh start somewhere. So he's packing up to leave. And Blackbeard's like, I can't believe you're leaving. We've saved the little lavender scented ladies. Everything's good. But Suzanne Plachette shows up and informs everybody that Silky welched on the bet.
Oh.
So, yeah. Womp womp. The end. No, this sets off Walker, right? And Blackbeard. They're upset. And so Blackbeard agrees to serve under Steve, and they both head off to confront Silky. And here's where we get one of the few songs in the film. So they join arm in arm in song as they march towards Silky singing "The Heart of Oak," which is the official march of the Royal Navy, written by William Boyce. Steady, boys, steady. Yeah, slapstick comedy gold, right, Alice? So I just love this when they're marching along, singing this song. Well, Professor Baker's like, you're not going down there by yourself to Silky's place. You're going to get beat up. So she catches up to Dean Jones, who looks like he's walking arm in arm with nobody. She still doesn't know. She has no idea why Dean Jones is acting this way, because she's never seen Blackbeard yet. But
she's not bright. Like, she's literally flashing $900 cash in public. She's not putting any pieces together of people flying through the air at track meet, but doggone it, she's lovable.
Here they go. They're marching. Yeah, that's a great song. I looked that song up today. I thought maybe, was it a Sherman Brothers song or something? Nope. It's a Royal Navy march, the official march of the Royal Navy. So interesting.
Yeah, that is.
So they show up to Silky's place, Steven and Joanne, and they enter the restaurant, and the bartender's like, uh-oh, here come the rum stealers. So he grabs those bottles. He corrals them in his arms, like, no one's getting my rum. And there's Gil Lamb with a couple shrimp cocktails, so we get to see him fall once more. And this time he ends up, do you have a picture of that? He kind of tumbles over.
I texted it to you.
Yeah. he tumbles over into the lobster tank, and one of them ends up being perched on his head. I love that.
Wait, let me.
Uh-oh, were you talking negatively about Suzanne? Oh, yeah. Well,
There you go. There's a
yeah.
picture. Right there. Here's the picture of him with the lobster on his head.
Yeah, there it is. There it is in life. Okay. So, poor Gilliam, lobster on his head. So they head back to Silky's office, and there's Norm. He's kind of guarding, and he gets hit in the face by an invisible punch, and his eye turns black, and they knock the door down. Oh, that's another great special effect.
And she still doesn't believe it.
Yeah, she has no idea what's going on. So I'm explaining this as it's happening on screen, folks. so so after they give Norm the shiner and knock him over, the couple are like, "Hey, Silky, you got to pay up," but he's not going to do that because he knows the couple is just going to give the money to the old ladies, and his casino idea will be dead in the water. But he's got this other idea, and that's here's your original $900 back. Here, take it. Why don't you go win it honestly on the roulette table? And at first, the idea is kind of ridiculous because they want the money. They earned that 45,000. All however legal or illegal you think it happened,
Mm-hmm.
but they have every right to it. But Blackbeard's like, hey, you know what? Take the money. Let the wench try her luck.
My God.
So Walker's like, he's talking in thin air to somebody, and Joanne's like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to?
It's only been
Anyways,
3 weeks.
they get the money. They head to the high rollers room back there, and they start placing their bets. Suzanne has her system, but Dean Jones is like, we need to win this money fast because we got to get back to the inn with the money. It's almost midnight. So they start placing like large sums of chips on one number and letting it ride. So they spin the thing. Blackbeard does his thing. He moves the marble to their number. Woohoo! They're winning and winning. Everybody's happy. And, the roulette guy and his assistant are a little suspicious. So it's time for them to take matters into their own electrical hands or whatever. Yep. So here's a scene of them at the there they are. Suzanne's just like, yeah, money. We're rich.
Make it rain.
Making it rain with the chips. I love Suzanne. Is just totally charming in this. She's hilarious. I love her. You just want to give her a hug. So, like the assistant, they decided, okay, enough's enough. Well, they need one more big win to have enough money. So they let it ride on one number. The ball spins around. It lands in their number. But at the last second, they hit that little switch that causes the ball to move to another number. And they lose almost everything. They had a few chips left. Well, Blackbeard's like, what's going on with this foul trickery? Which is funny because you're kind of involved in some foul trickery yourself. So he discovers the device and the wiring, and so he takes the wires off. There you go. And he places it on the garter that holds up the roulette man's socks. And so, all right, one last spin. They're going to let it all ride with what they got left. And the number comes up. Well, they hit the button to shift the ball, and what happens next? It's like,
I wish I had a picture.
I know, and I'll show it to you here when it's almost up to that scene, right? Well, there's the guy right there. Who is this guy? Yeah, I should have looked him up, but he's hilarious.
His name is Herbie Faye.
Herbie Faye.
Herbie
Okay.
Faye. He was only in one Disney film, Blackbeard's Ghost.
Oh, well, thanks for doing what you do, man. And uh, electrocuting yourself.
Yes. But in such a cartoon way.
I know, it's hilarious. I love it. So, um,
MD Snotty says, "Don't you have 50-cent chips?"
not in this room, lady. I'm kind of losing it right now because whenever I see this scene, like, okay, here's his assistant. Like, okay, we need to stop these shenanigans. So they start, after he gets shocked and they're dancing around. Well, that was the big win, right? They have all these chips. Well, Suzanne's not happy with the amount they got. She's like, "Hey, we can win more. We can help the ladies. We can spruce up the hotel." And every reason she gives for playing more is not for her own benefit. It's for the ladies, which is funny. So we're almost to that scene here. I think I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit. And okay, so he sees the wires. He's going to put them on the socks right here. This is just one of the best scenes. Do we have time to do this?
I have time.
We all have time. Well, I'll keep talking here. So there it is. So Dean Jones is like, "All right, you know what? We've got enough. We got to get back to the inn because it's almost midnight." And so they're running out of they go get the cash. I don't have time for this. They convert all their chips to cash, right? Stuff it in the purse. And before they can get out the front door, you know, okay, so here it is. No more bets. Letting it ride. And they're like, we got you.
We,
And Blackbeard does this thing. They win, and
it's so dumb, but it's
oh, I just love that. And the part Jim's like, when the guy gets electrocuted and his toupee was spinning. I know it's so funny. Thanks, Jim. I'm sure you're having a good time with us here. So there they go. They're getting the chips. They're headed out, but you know what? This is what they're up against. Silky and his boys are done. Todd, it's like me trying to dance at prom. You and me both, dude. Yeah, and notice he's not dancing with the girl, so that is even more like me at prom. He's dancing with another guy, which isn't bad, but all right, so they're not getting out without a fight. Silky's done being the nice evil villain. And what happens next is almost as funny as the scene we just witnessed.
mm-hmm.
Why don't you go ahead and tell them about it?
So they think that, oh no, they have them cornered. But Blackbeard goes behind all of the thugs. And he, one by one, takes their guns out of their coat pockets. Now, apparently these people cannot feel anything because he wasn't very delicate about it. I didn't feel. And so then by the time I got to the point where Silky was like, "Okay, everybody, it's time to shoot," they all draw their guns, but their guns are gone, so they only draw their fingers. Like a finger gun.
He just starts shooting them. And then Suzanne's like, "What's happening here? How can this be happening?" Oh, maybe we should just do like a commentary next time. We should try that. So, Suzanne gets in on the action, right? She's like, "Use the gun."
Use the gun. Use...
This is just classic Disney right here. I got him. Okay, I'm starting to cry now.
Oh,
Okay. All right. So they get out. Like there they go. Yep. And they're on their way. But not before Blackbeard. Oh, there's an actual punch there by Dean. He got him.
Did you say attack?
Blackbeard's like, hey,
You will.
we're having fun. You proceed. I'll just tidy up a bit. So, which he does, and all the thugs are just dead, and then one of the slot machines is opens up and covers them all with coins, and they're out for the count. So they got the money. They head back to the inn, and 3, 2, 1. The banker's counting down to midnight, right? And just in time, they get there and save the inn. And there's a cool picture here. I love this picture right here. So, well, before this happens, they give Dean Jones the mortgage paper, right? And so
Mhm.
why don't you go ahead and burn this? And he's like, no, I think somebody better, more qualified here should do it. And so what he does, which is funny because he decides to read the spell. Well, I don't know why he waited until this moment to do it, but he could have done it any time in the film, but it was just convenient to do it here. So it's just
I,
one of those.
that's always the stuff I think about, and I never even thought about that.
Because like everybody thinks he's crazy in town. Well, why doesn't he just like have one of them read the spell and he could appear to them? Nope. He waits for the most opportune moment, kind of like how Jack Sparrow does in Curse of the Black Pearl when he
Yeah.
decides to use his gun to that one bullet.
Oh my god.
We can't. We shouldn't even start with the similarities between this and Jack Sparrow, because I see a lot of Jack Sparrow in Peter Ustinov. I think they got some inspiration from this
Oh, I wouldn't be
movie.
surprised.
Yeah. Johnny Depp says he got it from another film. I read about it, but I can't recall. But anyways, so everybody repeats the spell, and Blackbeard appears, and the sweet lavender scented ladies are overcome with emotion, especially Miss Stowcroft, and they're just crying tears of joy. And so Blackbeard, in his fashion that we probably haven't talked enough about, how he can go on and orate at length, right? he 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 gives a stirring oration and says he does not deserve the lion's share of the glory. Oh no, oh no. That Steve played a modest role, and Steve begins to speak, but Blackbeard stops him. Oh, our heart is too full to hear more from you. he, he takes the document, throws it in the fire, and yells, Aditha! And so Blackbeard announces that he's off to a distant and hopefully hospitable shore, and departs with the ladies singing, he's a jolly good fellow, and he sails off into the unknown with his old crew, and Joanne and Steve share a final kiss, and there he is, appeared to there. Elsa Lanchester's swooning hard there. Oh, and I think I just bleeped there because I'm 20% battery left.
Oh no.
So that's it. That's the film. How was this movie received? Do you have any
Um, only with the commercial success.
Okay. Yeah, it was
That
very successful at the box office. This actually got a lot of great reviews. Roger Ebert gave the film 3 stars out of 4, called it Disney's best since The Absent-Minded Professor. I wonder why. Special effects much?
Mm.
and a splendid vehicle for the many talents of Peter Ustinov, and I can't agree more. I mean,
Wait, he said, I'm sorry. He said that was Disney's best since Absent-Minded Professor, and Mary Poppins came out in 1964.
you're talking about the guy who walked out of Million Dollar Duck, said it was the
But
worst movie he's ever seen. I don't know. Roger Ebert. I mean,
he was hit or miss.
he was, and that's how he was. So there must have been something in Mary Poppins he didn't like, and so that's probably why he said that, or maybe he was just having a brain fart.
Well, I mean, I say that for everyone else. For me, I'm like, No Mobile came out in 67.
Yeah, well, that's some serious shade thrown on your favorite. Sorry. Howard Thompson of the New York Times wrote, "The Walt Disney people have delivered a delightful seasonal goodie for the young and young-hearted called Blackbeard's Ghost. After a couple of limp herrings, the Masters live-action unit is back on sure footing with the neat, perky, and flavorsome little comedy fantasy that arrived yesterday at neighborhood theaters." So I wonder what those limp herrings were. Hopefully not your no mobile.
I would imagine, and don't quote me on this, but I would imagine, and I'm not saying that I agree, but I would imagine stuff like uh, a bullwhip griffin,
Oh, yeah, maybe Ugly Dachshund probably
ugly
too.
duckling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there were a few right there at the end of Walt's life and before this one, but I really thought this movie was gonna really set off a string of good movies, and it kind of did because Love Bug came out the next year,
hmm
and we're kind of ending the end of Robert Stevenson, Bill Walsh and the gang.
but they
Um,
did bed knobs and broomsticks.
yeah, so really, yeah, 71, right? Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So we're kind of with this film, we're kind of seeing the end of an era, right?
I
With those
agree.
other two films you mentioned before we head into the 70s, which saw its share of uh, dull films, but there are some bright spots.
I agree. I would agree.
Um,
Look, I'm looking at Freaky Friday.
yeah, Freaky Friday, and maybe you can even throw the Dexter Riley trilogy in there.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't have a whole lot of fun facts other than Robert Brunner. He wrote the music. I think this was like kind of a weak point. There was a lot of scenes in this film that had no music soundtrack at all. That's my only gripe because I'm a big fan of uh, music in movies.
hmm
Like the whole fight sequence at the end was silent.
Which is
Uh,
typically not. That's
yeah.
typically not the case when it comes to at least the live action Disney stuff from that time period. I
Hmm.
feel.
Yeah. So that was a little odd. Like I said at the beginning, there was a really nice overture, but not a whole lot after that. So a bummer. The other fun fact I had was Alditha teaches spell book. You can find that in Disneyland. That's on Madame Leota's seance table
Yes.
in the Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
And that's all I got to say. I mean, this we've talked this to death. I think I've had a fun time
I really
laughing.
enjoyed this one. I will
Yeah.
say one quick thing, one quick other fun fact that I found interesting was the costume. The head of the costume department, his name is Chuck Keene.
Oh,
Um,
yes, I mentioned. Yeah, I had that written down.
yeah, he mentioned how they aged, quote unquote, aged Blackbeard's costume, and they used sand. They did it by sandpapering his shoes, and
Oh,
sometimes even
really?
sandblasting some of his clothes to age it quickly. So I thought that was
Oh,
kind of interesting.
yeah, that's cool. Disney had a knack for that, aging things in the
Hmm
parks. So it doesn't surprise me it translated well into films. I'm sure. Well, Disneyland itself is basically a stage set. So they were in the movie business and put that part together.
Yeah,
Oh, Alice, thanks for answering Jim's question there. Right, the seance book. Um, any last questions from folks who stuck around? I'm really happy. A lot of great involvement. I apologize if we didn't get to everybody's questions. Tried to tried to uh, get all that in there. This one went a little long, but I had a good time tonight.
I did too. This was one that I hadn't watched in a while, and I wasn't as familiar with as the past ones that we've talked about. So it was really fun to rewatch it and watch it through a different, I feel like even a different kind of eyes, I was able to rewatch it and just enjoy it.
Yeah, there's something about preparing for these that makes you pay attention a little bit more and pick up things maybe you don't see if you're just kind of casually enjoying it. So,
Exactly.
uh, yeah, so that's why I like doing these. And so we'll be back in a couple more weeks, and we'll in a week or so we'll let you know what that film's going to be, and that'll do it. Good night, everybody.
Great talking. Great seeing everyone. Great talking to you, Brian. And I'm excited.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Todd. Hey, thanks for sticking around
Yes,
to
thanks for.
the very end. Yeah. Do we think they should remake this movie? Uh, that might not be a bad idea. I don't know.
See, I'm not opposed. I think I've messaged you or texted you or something like that. I'm not opposed to remaking anything, uh, because if it's terrible, and I can forget about it. If
Yeah.
it's wonderful, and I can enjoy it. But either way, I'm always going to have the original.
Jack Black would make for a great Blackbeard. Yeah.
Jack Black.
I think he could probably pull off a Peter Ustinov. Um,
I do.
but it's really hard for me to see anybody but him
I
do this. He's so perfect.
I agree.
Yeah. So that'll do it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Todd. A celebration. No remakes, says Elmer. Yeah, he's not a big fan.
Just so you know, I'm goodbye, everyone. I was waving.
Oh, okay.
It was even facing.
All right, you guys. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate all the participation, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Good night.